Okay, this is day 116, and obviously the plane crash yesterday generated a lot of speculation, especially about this guy named Sergei Panchenko, and if he was the same guy as Sergei Million Panchenko, who did the PP dossier. I will cover that in a second, but I also want to jump to another person who I had said on here was a gal named Rostov, who was an EB5 lawyer, and I didn't have my notes with me at the time, but it turns out, yes, indeed, she is an EB5 lawyer. Rostov is, and her name is Irina Rostova. Excuse me. And basically, she says right here, dubbed the Green Card for Money program, the EB5. So Rostova is the key link to Bernie Wisnant in Miami, and then Hollywood Beach is just a little bit north of Miami. So one of the places I think they put people was the Trump Hotel, among other places along Miami Beach. Miami and Florida, just having talked to Jared Beck, is just the hot spot for EB5s. There's also a hot spot for Russian babies as well, not far from where Jason and I walked, where Bernie Wisnant's last steps, not far from where Debbie Wasserman Schultz gives her speeches at the Diplomat Hotel, not far from where I talked to all the different rabbis and Christian leaders from all over the world at the Diplomat Hotel, talking about getting Russian babies and getting babies. So it's just kind of all within all within a quarter mile of where Bernie Wisnant died. Is this story. So this is heavily connected. This is very heavily connected. And so I didn't jump to the other stuff as quickly as I did to this, because this really makes a lot of sense. If you remember, Iran had the AB ports, the AB imports in Miami. So if you had a situation like Operation Cassandra, where you had drugs coming in, let's say you had weapons coming in and being cached there and then going out, Miami would be a great place to do it. And bringing all your scientists, the people who work the docks, also people who are doing maybe even peaceful nuclear explosions. You might even want to bring those into Miami. So we'll see as we go forward. But she's connected to this company called Aptify. I'm not sure if they were bringing in programmers, but Aptify does do a lot of kind of membership programming. So I don't know if that's a good lead or not, but they are in Tyson's Corner here in Washington, D.C. They do have a lot of people from a lot of different countries coming and going all the time. So it would be a good funnel where you have 90% of the people are just doing their jobs, and then you're bringing in people from different places to EB5 them into the country. So we'll just put Aptify out there for right now as a entity for analysis. Now here is another guy who says he does EB5s in Miami area. This is this Sergei Million that I've talked about 30 days ago. He's the guy who met with Papadopoulos. He's the guy who's probably met with Carter Page. He's the guy who said Trump had the two prostitutes with the PP. I don't think that actually occurred, but anyway, he's the guy who says so. He's also the guy who says, hey, I sold a lot of EB5s through Trump Hollywood on that beach where Bernie Wisnant died. Was Bernie Wisnant killed right in front of Trump Hollywood to try to make it, is it kind of an orgy of evidence, trying to blame Trump? I don't know, but it seems they've gone overboard, so to speak, with trying to paint Trump. They could have dumped a bucket of blood on his back. It would have been more subtle. But anyway, the key question is, did he die in the plane crash yesterday? And I don't think he did. But I do think an energy lawyer did die. This is an article that came out in Puppet String News to that effect. He also had an interview with Brian Ross at ABC where he said just the same stuff I just said. So you can check into Sergei Million. Here's the guy I think it is. It's Sergei Pachenko, who's more of a health and safety kind of guy for the mining and oil industry. And if you look at his background, this Salk Holland Energy is way out by Japan. Okay, so he's probably drilling near in the Japanese waters and so forth. I'm not saying Fukushima was a peaceful nuclear reaction, but I'm just saying that this company does a lot of oil and gas work with Japanese firms and joint ventures. So you can just look and see his background. He does a lot of oil field development. Again, not saying peaceful nuclear reactions, but You can look at his background. It's in that Japan area, if you will. So it doesn't look like he's Uranium One. But here's Oleg Deripaska. If you don't remember Oleg, he's the guy who takes the prostitutes out on the boat, and Andy has all the low light cameras, and then they compromise politicians. Here's the deputy prime minister of Russia, and this is basically, there's a guy who's challenging Putin right now, saying Putin's corrupt. Putin did all these deals with Hillary Clinton. Putin did Uranium One. It's not all Kazakh uranium. It's actually coming from Russian mines. It's just being laundered through Kazakhstan. These oligarchs are all profiting, and so on and so forth. And Oleg is the one who knows about stealing all the assets to begin with, and now he's the one who knows about partnering with different Russian politicians to sell it off. And the Russian people are understandably angry at that. So, not to get too complicated, but that's the guy I was talking about. Navalny is his name, like naval, NY, okay? And he's challenging Putin. Putin just recently had him arrested, as you can see here, okay? So, not to get too involved, but one of Navalny's supporters here, his lawyer just happens to be this Sergei Panchenko. So is this the lawyer that was killed on the plane in Moscow, or some people think it was the energy lawyer out there by Japan? We don't really know the answer to that. But let's say you did go through Oleg Deripaska, right? And let's say you did give away secrets. Let's say you were Northrop Grumman or Lockheed, for lack of a better example, just the FBI kind of investment consortium. You could, if you had a Q clearance, secret these secrets over to a builder of weapons in Moscow, let's say a guy named Sechin, who you've been dealing with for a long time. You could then have those built and then brought into the United States at Port Canaveral, if you did a really horrible deal with Port Canaveral with the Gulftainer deal. And then you could just basically truck these to Jacksonville or Miami or let's say Tampa, and then you could send them to ISIS wherever you needed. So it kind of, all three directions, you could send them wherever in the world they were needed. They'd just sit there in inventory until time came to ship them to ISIS. This would be very nice because it's a zero footprint operation, no American manufacturers, no American workers, untouched by human hands here. You bring in the workers into Miami, you get them EB-5s, you get them a nice place over at the Trump Hotel up in Canaveral. It's just kind of a fun deal, fun deal. I realize Canaveral's a ways from Miami, but the executives would be in Miami, and the MS-13 guys are going to be working the docks. Okay, so what happened here is this: we were trying to meet with Mary Fanning and Alan Jones. They're the ones who exposed this deal, this Gulftainer deal. What could possibly go wrong with having the head of FSB bring in these Club K weapon systems, which can tilt up cruise missiles and all sorts of things, command centers, etc., and then team them up with the Jafars, who are the nuclear scientists for Iraq. Doesn't sound like a good idea, but yes, Jack Lew, 35-year, no-bid contract, went through CFIUS in 1 hour. 1 hour went through CFIUS. So if you don't remember Mary Shea King, we went to Port Canaveral, we looked into all this stuff, and there's Sechin right there, the head of FSB, number 2 guy, Putin's right-hand man, and there's Jafar, head nuclear scientists in, the 2 Jafar brothers, head nuclear scientists in Iraq. So, if this story sounds like EB-5, if this story sounds like Miami, if this story sounds like Florida, if this story sounds like Iran-Contra, weapons in one direction, drugs in the other, you're right. Also, obviously, Mark Warner here, senator from Virginia, Port of Norfolk, is going to be involved in this. Who's going to know what secrets went to who? We don't know, but obviously Mark Warner was very involved in wanting to talk to Christopher Steele and get to Oleg Deripaska. He wanted to get to the guy with the boat. He wanted to get to him quick. So who knows? And that was just last year when they were trying to come up with their cover story. We don't know what's going to happen from here on in.